It's Eve 2020. This is Matterall. It's June 17th. We're going to have a look at what's going on in Eve Online. We've just had a patch. I think it's called Lightning Strikes. And it's still getting some adjustments applied to it. And we'll talk about some of that stuff later on and then whatever else we run into. First, let's go and find out what's going on with within the last 24 hours of EVE Online. So the most violent regions as far as ship-to-ship combat, the Forge with 1,844 ships destroyed, with a Lone Trek and Black Rise closely behind. Most violent regions in Nullsec, Fade has 711 ships destroyed. Catch in second place with 200 less than that at 511, and Innsmother 490. I think we're looking at Innsmother to be the beginning of the next major war. We'll see if that causes some fractures. It is a proxy war after all between, who would that be between? Legacy and Fraternity or PandaFam? But we will see. There's some things that are, there's definitely some dark clouds in the EVE Online sky. There's some very needed war brewing. So we'll see if there is some kind of a perfect storm of people needing to get motivated to do things, plus opportunity and meaning for doing it in the first place. We'll see if those two things meet up and create an engine of destruction. So most violent systems, specifically VRH TAC H7 in Fade, 533 ships destroyed in the last day. Also in Fade, OTAC C NPR, 142. Funny as Fade topped the list as the most violent region, that was unusual. So these are the two systems that gave Fade that designation. And then also in Catch and GE TAC 8, you have 183 ships destroyed. Most violent systems in Nullsec, Nanamela tops the list, 530. That's a lot. And that's in Black Rise. Nanamela is where Horde and the Imperium are going at it. And then second on the list is Tomo at 274 and Onan 153. So those two are very normal. And now we check most violent systems in HiSec, sensing invasions allow HiSec to see a lot more combat than it used to in places other than trade hubs. But this day, the last 24 hours, it belongs to Jeddah, a trade hub, 427 ships destroyed. Get this, 555 pods destroyed. I used to think that that's just people podding themselves, self-destructing so they could wake up in a different system. They call that the pod underground or something. It's like taking the subway with a pod.
A different name.
Pod Express.
Pod
For me,
Express.
it's the Pod Express.
Thank you. That's it. Pod Express. So that's why you might have more pods destroyed than ships, because how else? Or maybe people are undocking in pods and then just getting destroyed. Anyway, little mystery. Next is in the most violent systems in HiSec, Sekenta, with 170 ships destroyed, and call this the content pocket, I guess, because Sekenta is two jumps away from Jeddah, which means you have a trade hub with a lot of equipment, and then only 2 jumps away in Sekenta, you have a brawling system where there's no penalty for brawling because the authorities have been chased away by the invading aliens, let's say. And so it's a guilt-free brawling arena just 2 jumps away from the store. And then finally in Coaster, which is Essence, you have 282 ships destroyed. That's a newbie system. So that might be just new bros blowing up as part of missions. Looking at NPCs, looks like the NPC kill rates are down. Only Outer Passage has 40,000 or more NPCs destroyed. Who is loading? Let's take a look. We're looking at alliance movements now. And looking at this group here that has been building up. Load is their ticker, 386 members. They're down from what looked like over 1,200. I never saw these guys coming. Let's look at corporations and see who they were. You ever heard of these guys? Loading?
They've recently got involved with Probiblock, I think, if I'm not wrong. I've seen them on a few battle reports in that area.
Holy cow, it's raining hard where you're at.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a storm.
Lightning strikes. Let's hear that thunder. Key up if it hits. Provi, okay. Well, some interesting stuff taking place in Providence, but I have not heard of loading. It's interesting to see them grow and then actually lose some groups really quickly. I think the big one here is they lost the corporation called Starforged Syndicate. They went to Dark Order Ascension Alliance. They took 800 members with them. Yeah, that happened on the 16th. But they retain their big corporation here is Celestial Precision. Let's look at the overview and see if there's any information on these guys. Nope. Well, that's the alliance. Let's check the corporation here. They might have some contact information. Oh yeah, recruitment clock. Click here. This is mining, hauling, abyssal runs. It's an NPC organization. And yep. So this group, Celestial Precision, started the loading alliance. And they are clearly the biggest group in it. Looks like there's a bunch of smaller groups. Let's take a look at this other corporation that just left that took about half the members with them. This is Starforged Syndicate. And they are a corporation based on loyalty, honor, and cooperation, exploring all aspects of New Eden. Our main goal is to build and grow a vast community of helpful and driven individuals that work in unison, expanding our empire to reach across the galaxy one system at a time. What do you think of that? You're a CEO Alliance leader, aren't you? Spawn?
Yeah, if you can count it as that, yeah. It's a tiny alliance that's basically just a weird corp.
It's a malformed corp that turned into an alliance. Well, that just looked like a lot of generic talk, but I applaud their aspirations, so good for them.
I have to say they did get me with the alliance name meme. When I first came across them, I clicked on it and sat there staring at it for about 30 seconds, saying, thinking like, I've never seen an alliance name take time to load. What's going on?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a good sneaky little trick, that one. I don't know why it works, because that's not a thing. Alliance names don't load.
All right, let's look at the kill board, see what's going on there.
But yeah, it looks like they do, that loading group, the little I know about them is they do seem to live, or at least are beginning to live or interact in the Providence region. They do appear on the occasional fleet fight on the side of the Probiblock fellows.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. What's going on in Probiblock? Is there any news there that you know about?
I don't know about any political sneaky news, but I can tell that not so much on, at least not so much that I've seen, shall I correct myself before I get in trouble, not so much I've seen on the Wrecking Crew side of things, but the Probiblock side of things seem to be cranking the war machine in terms of hardcore recruiting.
They're getting some help from Legacy, no doubt.
I don't know about that side of things, but all I know is that they've started propping up in a lot of places trying to recruit people. I think they're starting to realise that at last, they have been a bit static for a long time in terms of growth.
Right. So we're demonstrating our new chat box. So if you have comments, they will show up. And immediately I got some spam, so I had to get rid of that. I think that was spam. If you weren't spam, sorry, dude. Looked like spam.
It was some sort of fake. Go here, pay $10, and we'll put fake views on your video, and it'll be great. Someone's very loud. Is that me?
Yeah, you're loud. It's because you're in the middle of a thunderstorm. I'm going to turn you down just the same.
Let me just drop the compressor.
No, I got you up at like 200%. So, sorry. All right, so Providence. I don't know. There appears to be something going on here. There's either some civil war going on with Pravi, or there's, Pravi's kind of dirtying themselves up by having some messaging problems, and then there's, I don't know how much of this is public. So.
I know that they're working on some level of, what would you call it, reform, shall we say. I don't necessarily know, here comes a big one, I don't necessarily know about any coup kind of things. I don't think that's a thing. But I'm aware of, and I'll try and take claim for this, because my alliance was in Provi Block until very recently, and we caused a huge stink because we were very vocal about the issues they had. And since we've left, though, I've been in contact with a few diplos within Provi Block, and they do seem to be, they're kind of trying to get their act together and trying to improve, because they have been, honestly, I think even they won't deny it, as a whole, on the losing side of this fight with Wrecking Crew. Although it's a relatively stagnant fight, neither side has really changed territory, and neither for a long time it's just been a constant jousting match.
Then again, Providence has been challenged on a fairly regular basis, with people just seeing it at, hey, it's not red, don't shoot. But overall, if you do no harm, they welcome you with open arms. So they've seen plenty of incursions, but I think this is one of those few actual invasions where the opposing side is actually going at it to stick around for the long term. And I believe it's mostly due to an ideological difference on what Providence should be, at least how it should be.
To some extent it is. I have spent a decent bit of time talking with leadership on either end of that conflict. And obviously there's always going to be spun propaganda to one way or another. CVA / Provi Block have obviously got their, we're the keepers of Providence, Amar good, everyone else smells. Whereas the Wrecking Crew side of things are basically saying that, not that they necessarily want to take over the region, but they just want to sort of get a nice foothold and live there. And yeah, they are in some ways ideologically opposed. They don't like the NRDS thing. I know that for sure. And they have a few culture differences. Well, quite a few culture differences, but the culture thing is a different topic entirely.
But then again, like occasionally, it's just a given that over time entities become a bit more relaxed and they don't respond as aggressive. So I can imagine that from time to time people say, hey, we need to shake things up, get them back on track to be able to defend them if things get serious. So you know what, we're going to have a serious go just to get them back in shape. Not saying this is that case, but I have heard it happen before.
Well, a few things that I'm aware of is Providence. I don't know the story on the RC side for this kind of thing. I've not been that involved, but I know Providence has been quietly hemorrhaging members for quite a long time, mainly due to issues like culture clashes, and one of the big ones for myself was everything is just, it works, but it's the old guard. It's it works great if you've been there for years and you understand how everything is done, but new people coming on doesn't work very well, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
That was Spod and Dutch Gunner talking about Providence. Spod is the one with the thunderstorm in the background. I think I heard a little bit of thunder there.
It keeps flashing, but I don't get any big spicy ones, I'm afraid.
Well,
If I do this... Right, you shouldn't be able to hear the rain anymore.
can still hear
Sorry, I
it.
got bad news for you. It's still there.
It's all right.
Well, it should be quieter, unless you like
Tell Thor to chill out. We're doing a show. Come on, man.
the sleepy white noise effect, so you can relax in the evening to a bit of rain.
Yeah.
I do listen to things like that from time to time. It's really relaxing.
Yeah, I used to listen to traffic, and traffic, you could hear it coming and then get loud and then go. It actually sounded like waves. So I was like, oh, it's like the ocean, except it's traffic. But anyway, let's look at the kill boards. And looking at 5 billion and above, there's only one thing that reached 10 billion and above, and that was a Fortizar and J space belonging to Golden Ram. Cool idea. Golden Ram was killed off by literally triggered. Ragnar Ragnarsson, we know that name. I think he hangs out in TIS. Well, he and his group of, looks like 39, probably took out this, evicted this group Golden Ram. Maybe not an eviction, maybe they just killed a structure that was there. But other than that, we have a bunch of 5 to 10 billion ISK kills. The first one of which belonged to Bot Brothers of Tangra. It's a RIA. That's a jump freighter. Cost about 9 billion. And that's about what this kill mail is. So not much to look at as far as cargo. That was killed in Metropolis in Kenora. It was knocked out by Coastal Brotherhood. We also have a couple Naglfars. These look like they were fighting in the same wormhole against Laserhawks and Tactical Supremacy. These things I think are normally worth like 3 billion. Let's take a look at a Naglfar. That's a...
Depends on the equipment. With wormholes, you tend to see the faction equivalents more, like with the guns or the other modules. And I saw a purple.
Yeah.
I think I saw a purple hardener. Yeah, then it goes up quick.
Yeah, but the base of I lost track of the base of a dreadnought, how much a dreadnought was, and the nags are going for like 1.8 billion. So when you get a 5 billion or above kill mail, that means he had some pretty good equipment on it. He does have a lot of, looks here like a lot of, this is stuff you can't really price very well. It's Abyssal mutated hero stabilizers or gyro stabilizers. So we don't know what those actually, how valuable those things actually were. They don't register. But he did have some good stuff on here in general. You have some greens, which are faction, usually belong to a navy. And did you say you saw blue? Yeah, right here, the Pythium B-type.
I saw purple. Was it blue or? Oh, yeah, okay, blue. You're right.
I see purple, and I don't know what this is. It's kind of small. I see greens and blues, and I can't tell. Everything else looks gold, which is T2. But the purple or the red that you're seeing here is kind of a magenta. Those are mutated by Abyssal means, basically crafted. They're unique items, and they end up having altered stats. So sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're really bad, sometimes they're really good in specific ways and really bad in others. But you can't really put a price on that. The other nag is, I think it's in the same hole here, but they belongs to different group. Anyway, this stuff is taken out in J space. Total of about 10 billion in 2 dreadnoughts. Finally, there's an Asbel taken out in Derelict in Lashishi. Let's put it that way. That's the region of Derelict. This Asbel belonged to Intimus Corona, and it was taken out by abandonment issues. That's a funny name for a group. They're looking at, obviously it's abandoned structures is the name of the character, so they're looking for loot. Okay, we did say Fade was hopping, right? Let's go look at Fade. Not Falcon, but Fade. That's a region. There it is. And we'll see if we can see some... Yeah, Northern Coalition mixing it up with Imperium. Let's go to related kills here. Yeah, it's about 200 on 150. This is OTAC C. That's the fight there. And this one FC'd by Killa B, who's made a comeback, actually. He's now playing Eve again. He is on his way to being a historic, or actually he probably already is, a historic fleet commander for Northern Coalition. And he's on this show quite a bit. Looks like he took a Ferox fleet out and took him up against the Imperium Hurricane fleet. Both fleets are cheap and they're T1. They're made with just minerals and blueprints. Nothing special. You can produce many of those things in short order. And it looks like Killa B has still got his game, even though he's been away for a while. He got a 60% efficiency on this fight. But again, he's a very seasoned FC. Now, the efficiency might be chalked up to using cheaper ships, but yeah, it looks like a ton of Jackdaws destroyers were taken out. Oh, that's interesting. Let's see where the money was. Yeah, tactical destroyers, basically. So the Jackdaws are the ones that comprise most of the bill. This was only an under 10 billion ISK fight anyway, so it's not a big deal. Probably wasn't pivotal. But there he is. Killa B is back in Fade, active, fighting against the Imperium. There was a thought, he took a break. There was a thought when he came back that he would want to go to the Imperium itself, because it seems odd, right? Like an NC, like the main coalition block fleet commander from NC would come back to the game and want to go to Goon Swarm. Like, why would that happen? Well, because some people don't really care what side they're on. They're looking for a situation. So they come back to the game. They don't want to have to participate in rallying troops, getting people into fleet, just to go out and have some fun. So what happens is when fleet commanders come back, they may look for a situation that's already intact, potential. Like Billy, when he came back after a break, I believe he looked around and said, I'm going to go to Test. Test has a lot of people. And if I can get a lot of people into a fleet, then I can go out and have some fun. I think when Killa B was thinking of coming back, he was thinking about the Imperium. And that was more because they have a lot of structure. They have a lot of people. The people get pinged. They get into a fleet. And so for a fleet commander, that's a very sweet deal, coming back to that kind of situation. And him being a seasoned, super capital and sub capital FC, he would get a lot of deference. And so people, I'm sure that he would get the ability to take out some good fleets, maybe even a capital fleet in short order. So he would come back into a good situation if he went into an area that was already organized like the Imperium. That didn't happen. He's come back. He's back in NC, and he's taking out Northern Coalition fleets and fighting Imperium. And that's what we see here. Plus, he's not a real partisan guy. He doesn't have a long historic grudge. He used to be part of Black Legion, actually. Black Legion was known for fighting Pandemic Legion.
There's been too many legions.
Yeah, right? Everybody wants to be a legion. All right. I think there was Fade and there was some other place. Let's go back to dotlan and check that out again. There was it Fade? I think there was just 2 systems in Fade that we were looking at. Yeah, here's Fade. Does this have kills on it? Don't think so. This is just... But we'll look here at the systems. Insmother was another one we should probably look at. Yeah, OTAC C is the one we just looked at, had 142 ships destroyed, but we want VRH. Let's go look at VRH and see what happened there. This will no doubt be a different fight. Also, the same parties, right? They're fighting in this area, so we'll go to related kills, but you have the Imperium versus Northern Coalition, Pandemic Horde, and Conifers are in there too, with groups like Post Nord and Reckless Contingency helping out. This one went about 50-50, it looks like, and this was a much bigger fight. The ISK lost was about 30 billion total, 15 billion for each side. This is really close to a draw, literally 49.9% versus 50.1% efficiency. And again, Killa B, this is him in a Ferox fleet going up against Hurricanes. It just had a lot more people in it, so we could have seen a series of fights where this fight kicks off first. It's a big fight, and then you have a secondary fight as the two groups reinforce and re-collide. Yeah, that's Goon Swarm. I wonder, Goon Swarm's listed kind of. I want to see what the health of these bigger groups like Horde and Goon Swarm is these days. All right, so VH, let's look at that on the map, actually. Yeah, Fate is not very big, so these two systems are right near each other. In fact, if we switch this from traveling, right now the stuff that's lit up is the jumps, right? We want to change it to ship kills. And that's the last 3 hours, so let's do the last 24. Yeah, you can see the two fights there, right? You have VRH, and right next to it is OTAC C, so that could essentially be the same conflict. Okay. Oh yeah, Insmother. We're gonna look at Insmother. And this has been an interesting place lately because it's been a proxy war between the forces of PandaFam. By PandaFam, we mean Fraternity and Pandemic Horde and Northern Coalition and Pandemic Legion all together. There's some other groups in there too. I don't know if Triumvirate's in there anymore. But anyway, you have that group versus the Imperium, versus Legacy, which is the power in the south there. And that would be X-Death and or Fire Coalition and Legacy Coalition, kind of using, I think it was Nullseka Shulpin as a proxy war in that group in this area. Let's look at sovereignty here. Yeah, this is covered with XIX, and it looks like is that Red Alliance? I don't think so. Take a peek. Well, what do you know? It is Red Alliance. I didn't realize they had so much territory in Smother. Those two groups, I believe, are aligned, and they've taken over this area. So that's Fire Coalition. And let's look at Sin up here. That's going to be Synergy of Steel. I don't see any null. I don't see any null. Yeah, maybe that was Cash. Actually, they were fighting over Cash, not this place. But let's see what fights were here. And the way we do that is we switch from sovereignty, looking at who owns what, to live statistics here at the bottom. And we want to go to ship kills in the last 24 hours. It's ships, pods, and we could see the fighting lights up as red. I think it's hard for you to see. Let's see if I can, because it's actually at the bottom. Yeah, it's off the map. I'll just read it to you. Well, let's see if I can do this. There, now you can see it. Sorry about that. Sometimes this map doesn't work very well. So the big fights were in J, TAC, Z. 240 ships lost there. And let's see who was fighting in that. I don't think this will, it's not a very good link, so what I'll do is copy this. I'll try it anyway. If you hit kills, this is going to pull from Z Killboard directly into dotlan. It doesn't work very well, it takes a while. So I tend to just go to dotlan, into zkillboard, put in the system, select the system, go to the kills, and then I would just click any of, whenever I see uniformity, that's a fleet. You can click on any of them, and then I just hit the relate button over here. So related kills. And what it does is it groups all the kills that happened at the same time. And this looks like a relatively small fight, 80 on 90. But a little bit costly. No, those are hundreds. I thought that was really costly, but it's not. This is under $1 billion. And this is Pandemic Horde going against Fire Coalition. So minor action in Smother. Just looks like large patrol.
But there was 6 bill on one side there.
6 what?
But one, the Horde side is like, 800 million, and the other side is 6 point something billion.
Oh, I misread that. Yeah, you're right. Oh, wow. So the efficiency, happened. I should have looked at efficiency. That would have told me the numbers were off. That is a 7 billion, loss for Fire Coalition, which is not a lot. However, it's kind of a landslide because it's Horde basically got a 94% efficiency on this thing. So it's quite a lopsided fight. I'm looking for who the FC was. There's no easy way to distinguish the FC. You have to look at the ship type sometimes, or you have to know FCs and figure out which one is flying. But they fly with alts sometimes, so it's hard to figure out. Normally they'll have their main in there just for the recognition part of it. So sorry, I can't see. And if you're looking for an FC that's in a monitor, those are the bigger fights. If they're in the monitor ship, then they're clearly an FC because only FCs use ships. That's it. So let's go to Twitter. EVE Online. Is that Headliner? It is Headliner. So he got himself a Zappy Boy. It's the new ships that came out a couple days ago.
They should be getting a buff tomorrow, the Edencom ships. There was a bit of a... Yeah, Rise confirmed it yesterday, I believe. And he said it's coming in the next day or two. Basically, they're just a bit limp when it comes to power damage output.
Yeah, he says right here on the 22 hours ago, so about this time yesterday, he said, making some improvements on Edencom ship damage. We'll get it patched in tomorrow or Thursday. I guess we should look to see if there are any patch notes for today.
I had a look and no, it's not been patched in yet.
Okay, so tomorrow then, on Thursday. And Paul Grayston here says, good idea. I hope it's meaningful change, not just token change to sway the crowd. What? They are stunning looking ships. I don't know what Paul is talking about. But Rise says, we'll get the right amount of electro punch before long. Just keep the feedback coming. And you just mentioned this, right? They're trying to beef up the damage a little.
Yeah, they feel a bit limp. I think the argument is they do. If you do the maths, they kind of do as much damage as your average battleship, but they spread it over 5 targets, so it comes out a bit weak, and it's very, very situational. People are struggling to find a use for them.
Yeah. Yeah, the use case was easier for the frigate than it was the cruiser or even the battleship. So I think the frigate works pretty well. We went over this pretty well like a couple weeks ago with Fonsui. We demonstrated it on the test server, and not much has changed since then. But the frigate does a good job of cleaning out smaller abyssal space. And it does pretty well in certain circumstances. But we were thinking, like, how is this ship going to work? What theoretical use is it going to have? Is it going to wreak havoc on the ball of Logi that hang around a fleet? Is it gonna be able to take out multiple Logi at the same time, create multiple damaged targets so they couldn't run logistics and heal up ships easily? Like what are the use cases for these ships? And a lot of it was theoretical. So now we're seeing that as the ships enter the world and they are getting used, people are giving feedback to CCP Rise, who's one of the balance guy for these sorts of ships, and he'll make quick adjustments. I think they'll make quick adjustments as opposed to letting something sit for a long time. CCP will probably err on having OP ships before they launch something like this, a beautiful brand new ship with a ton of dev time in it, and have it be underpowered and not useful. That's a worst case scenario for them. They want the ship out there. They want people using it, even if it's overpowered. So they're going to give it what it needs. And it's not overpowered yet.
Then again, it could be that they're keeping certain uses in mind when they develop it. Because, for example, if you get 10 or 15 of these ships and they have a target and they're pretty sure that with their safety settings, it's not likely that it's going to hit them directly because they're at a safe distance, you do get a big spike over multiple targets at the same time. So if you're balancing it incorrectly, you could see a really big alpha strike where you just kill blobs off in a single volley. And that's something that is fun for the person who pulls it off, but for being on the receiving end, you're probably going to have a lot of complaints. So it's a fantastic feature. And if it would be indeed that it was a deliberate choice to keep it a bit on the low slide, to keep the fleet or the large deployments in mind, to not make them obviously viable, to have a small couple of ships blap much bigger groups, I would say that is well thought of design. But from my point of view, it's still theoretical. I'm still to get my hands on it and start to find a use for it. But I do plan on using that in the future.
They're an interesting counter to Triglavians, though, because the Triglavians' natural what do you call it, spider tanking ability, because every single Triglavian ship has a bonus to armor repairs, even the combat ones. So they're sort of intended to be used in a way that they were all essentially repairing each other at once. And what the Edencom ships are doing is applying damage to all of them at once, whereas Triglavians are repairing each other all at once. It's kind of a interesting relation they've tried to do there, I think.
The design between the two seems to be polar opposites, with Triglavians having a heavy focus on armor and spider tanking or utilities, while at the same time, if you look at Edencom ships, they have virtually no utility for the high slots. They are all about shield for survivability, and they're about getting that big strike off against clustered groups, where all the Triglavian is focused on individual things, like having an individual target that the damage goes up against, spider tanking for whoever draws the aggro. So it's polar opposites in a lot of different fields, and that makes them really interesting.
That was Dutch Gunner. Well, we have some comments here from the audience. The intended use, this is from Yevgenis, I think, says the intended use was fleet PvP, which they're probably already good at. Nick Bison says, first time in quite a while a ship did come out not totally OP, overpowered. Yeah. No talk bubbles today because we're trying something else, but your comments do come up. So we'll try to get talk bubbles. We have something like this. Let's see if I'll just transition so you can see who's talking and we can focus on that. Let's see. Let me pop that out actually. Transition back to that. And I'll just fix this here. Well, what do you guys think? Is it a PvP ship, PvE ship, or do you think...
Both.
Did CCP actually
both.
come out and say it's supposed to be for PvP?
If you look at the moment where it's introduced, we're in the middle of chapter 3. They definitely have really good PvP applications. But at the same time, if you look at the clusters of Navy ships or Triglavians that are duking it out, the PvE aspect is definitely out there. Or if you're looking at, to a limited extent, Abyssal Death Space, go in there, there's if you're able to apply them to multiple frigates at the same time, you can still break several ships at the same time because there isn't that much focus on getting a single ship wrapped up. It's only when you get the pockets or the rooms where you have a lot of the rogue drones that are being controlled by the Triglavians, that's when your application starts to suffer because you might want to hit that one frigate. But at the same time, there's so many other drones where it could leap to instead of another ship that would be one of those few locations in abyssal space where that turret type, weapon type, is not ideal.
Okay. So, a question here from IPEX asks, how is disintegrators balanced after release? Anyone remember?
I have a vague recollection of them being not bad, actually. Though somebody who's more involved in it might remember better than I. I don't remember them being too troublesome. Like, I don't think they were in that desperate need of a patch straight away.
Recall correctly, they had to add tracking penalties to the Tech 2 ammo. Not that it really matters because the guns have such ridiculous tracking anyway.
Thanks, Murray. A little quiet, but I understand you have certain conditions there.
I had a bit trouble making him out. Could you repeat it, Mandroll?
I can speak a little louder.
There you go.
So essentially, the only big thing that changed about the guns was I think they put in a tracking penalty on the T2 ammo. Not that that made much of a difference.
Yeah, I don't recall any big changes. Maybe some tweaks, but nothing really mentioned in any of the patch notes. But that's from memory. Like, don't pin me on that.
And a lot of people will tell you that the guns could use a nerf, and they just haven't been yet. But that's a different discussion.
Yeah. Have any of you not wrong when you say, I heard hearsay account that devs intended it for PvP, so take it with a grain of salt. Oh, I think we heard that too. They were meant for PvP. Of course, they have uses in other ways, but they definitely were meant to put into fleets. And I think they didn't make a distinction what size fleets, but we presumed that it would be more effective in smaller fleets, or at least have like a wing of these things, 3 or 4 of them, for instance, and not many more than that. Or you want to spread out with these things because they zap your friendlies as well as your enemies at the same time.
Isn't that one of the problems? Like, people have been saying they're very easy to counter because I'm not sure how true this is because I haven't tested it myself, but I've heard that they do hit drones as well. So you can almost use disposable drones as a sort of defense for your fleet. So if enough of you have drones out, chances are that that 5 targets being hit is only really 1 or 2 because it just goes off to burn the drones.
What's that called? Like flak or... Is it
I think somebody called it chaff.
Chaff, that's it. Yeah, chaff.
Yeah, the little flares that planes and helicopters shoot out when they're getting chased by a missile.
Yeah, they're super hot little pieces of whatever, like, and the heat-seeking missiles chase those instead of the actual helicopter. Yeah, chaff. Release the chaff. So the EVE Online version of that would be to throw out a bunch of drones, have somebody shoot you with the Vorton weapon, which will hit a target, and then, what do they call that? Spider electricity or chain electricity to different
arc, they call it, I think.
Objects, yeah. And if you have nothing but your own ships out there, those are the things that are going to get hurt and eventually blow up. But if you throw out a bunch of drones, you're kind of diverting that electricity to these small throwaway objects. Interesting. Yeah, we had thought of that when it was when we were testing it. We were wondering if that was going to happen. We don't know if that actually works. If people can surround themselves with drones, have them orbit the ship, and use that as kind of a shield. Don't know if that works. We'll have to see.
It's definitely going to draw some of the fire, but from my understanding, like they hit the initial target, and then they can hit to any other target in range. So I do think there is a bit of randomization, but if you're in a group of ships and you deploy your drones as a meat shield, because that's basically what it is, they will definitely soak up quite a bit of the. I'm just going to go with chain lightning.
Chain lightnings. Yeah, we're seeing some popularity with that one. I'm thinking Dungeons and Dragons terms. Just make it relatable. Yeah.
Kamehameha.
Hey, did the storm stop? I think I can hear you now.
I closed the window and the wind changed, so it's okay now.
All right.
The plant started flying off the windowsill, so I thought it might be time to close the window.
Yeah, might be. Might be a little late. All right, let's.
So hi. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm talking first time here.
Oh, okay.
And I thought about designing of this damage type weapon system we have. So this is the first weapon that has area of effect, kind of, and if you overdo it, the meta will change too rapidly, so you can't turn it back again because everyone flies these ships and it's cancerous, right? We all know this. But if you turn it down slightly up and then up again and monitor it and then turn it up again, then you might reach the sweet spot.
What do you guys think? That is Ipex, by the way, if you can't read his name.
It fits with my current thoughts that they're deliberately trying to avoid it from being too overpowered with mass deployment in mind. But for me, it's still a bit too early to make any bigger analysis and say, hey, this is what it's good at, this is what it's less good at, these are strong points, these are weak points. Interestingly enough, though, if you look at the damage application, Draglavian weapons, thermal explosive, and the incom, EM, and kinetic. So the polar opposites just keep going and going.
So
the tough thing,
yeah, go
the
ahead,
tough
Ray.
thing with trying to say that these will have a big impact on the meta is right now we're still in the hack meta. Munins and Eagles are still king. And particularly the Edencom battleship and the cruisers damage is light as well, but their damage relies on application. So if they were going to be shooting mostly T1 battle cruisers or like MWDing battleships where they would apply fully, maybe they'd have a place. But it's really hard to argue that these guns that do not apply well, particularly in their ancillary damage that's not on the target, that's getting target painted and webbed, it's just really hard to see them coming into the meta in their current state. We'll see what CCP Rise does.
Right. He had a really good success with Triglavian ships. One of the things that's very difficult, I don't know how many ships there are in EVE Online. There is a number, and somebody's totaled it up. If somebody could tell me how many total ships there are in EVE Online. But the idea is, and you have to take a subset of that and say these are the combat ships that people use. How do you fit a new ship into that landscape of, I think it's hundreds of ships? How do you fit a new ship into there and give it its own distinctive role? I think it's a really complicated thing to do. So the first time
it's extremely hard.
Yeah, Triglavians did that. They are useful, but not too useful. They found a place. They're part of the ecosystem now. And here, CCP Rise and his team are trying to do that again. How can they put in a new ship with new abilities and have it find its place in the ecosystem? Not too powerful and not necessarily too weak to be appreciated. it's very difficult. So I think it definitely will take some tweaking.
It's especially tough with a new weapon system, because if you're just talking standard ships, a lot of like looking at the pirate faction ships is a good way to kind of understand how they kind of build different roles out for ships, right?
Mhm.
Because the way the pirate factions work is they're essentially creating new things out of the tools you get from the four main factions. So, like, for example, it's a good one. Mordew's Legion, right?
Mhm.
Or no, they're a little more. It's a good one. I'd say Angels maybe are probably a little bit better, but they'll take bonuses from two different factions and mix them together, either mixing up which tank goes with which weapon system, what E-War goes with what thing, and then they'll add like one little extra bonus like warp speed that doesn't isn't game changing. Like the Macarial isn't the best battleship because it has warp speed, but it gives it a little bit more flavor. And so, like, one of the nice things about Triglavian ships, which made them cool to a lot of people outside of the weapon system, was they said, here's a ship that has a ton of utility high slots. Do with them what you will. There's some bonuses for things that usually go in high slots too. And so that gets a lot of people thinking about things that aren't necessarily related to the gun on the ship, but to different things you can do with fitting,
Mhm.
which makes them unique.
Right. So you mentioned too, Mortis Legion, I believe, are missile ships. They're kind of based off Caldari, and those are missile platforms. And then you mentioned the Angel faction, and those ships are usually for pirates that require fast ships. So that Macarial you talked about is a battleship, and it's a good gunboat. And the thing is, it has, as you said, a speed bonus, which makes it a fast battleship. And that's supposed to be, I think it's the ideal use for something like a Macarial was supposed to be kind of small gang and, get in and out fast and, bring a lot of firepower with you. But somebody configured it. I think it was GigX and CO2 configured the Macarial to be a big fleet ship a few years ago. And you started seeing a ton of Macarials in large numbers because of that. But that was because they reworked the fitting, found out they could get enough armor on it to make it viable. And I believe that, was it armor? They armor?
Armor. So,
They're armor,
well,
right?
that's one
Yeah.
of the interesting things, and that's one of the things that actually changed about the Macarial relatively recently. I think it was about a year ago. They actually rebalanced the Macarial where they took away a low slot and added a mid slot
Mm-hmm.
because armor Macarials were ridiculously dominant in the meta. And to the best of my knowledge, armor Macarials have been around a very long time, especially in low sec, where
Definitely
Swiss
low sec.
Army Max were extremely dominant, and they're still used. Snuffed Out still uses them. Pen is Out, Siege Green, all those guys.
Mm-hmm. Well, I
But
think,
right now, you can actually fit Macarials for either shield or armor, and just depends how you want to do it.
yeah, staying on the Macarial thing, you're right. And that's where it should be. Minmatar, you should be able to use. The reason Minmatar is preferred by PvP players is they're fast and they could be fit for armor, they could be fit for shield. So you don't really know what you're getting, which adds some ambiguity. If you attack somebody, they don't know what they're up against. Could go one way, could go the other. So that's why Minotaur have always been kind of a preferred, especially for solo PvPers and smaller gangs. The faction battleship of the Macarial was preferred in low sec for a long, long time, and that's kind of where it resided because they were very expensive. But I think they were over. They were. Oh, I think it was. Might have been the CFC or the Imperium was sitting on top of the area where the loot, where the blueprints as loot drop, and so they got over farmed, and so you had a lot of blueprints on the market, which brought the price point for the battleship down from a 700 million to about, at one point it got as low as like 240, 250 million, very cheap. So the rule of thumb for alliances is not to base your fleet concepts on faction or navy ships. Those are reliant on blueprints, which means there's a limited supply, which means they can be bought out, and that whole doctrine can cost you twice as much the next day because there's no supply. So normally you don't want to do a faction battleship as a fleet doctrine for hundreds of people. But because there were so many blueprints on the market, it was viable at a certain point to use Macarials as a standard fleet that hundreds of people would have to buy and have. And it was very difficult to choke off those supply lines or regulate that, or market manipulate the Macarial out of usage. So those are some of the weird, the one thing was the ability to get your hands on a Macarial. The other one was its utility. There were other things too, right? I don't know them all, but there's definitely things that influence what's in style and what's not.
So, at least throughout the years, there's been a couple of different reasons why Macarials were dominant. Right now in low sec, Macarials are dominant because they respond very well to bling. If you spend money on the tank and you're willing to invest in high-grade amulets, which are implants that vastly increase your armor EHP, they're one of the tankiest things you can fly. And combine that with the fact that they're a good alpha doctrine and you have a lot of mid slots to help mitigate incoming damage, you can take on a lot of people with not that many Macarials. And so you'll see groups like Snuffed Out, Siege Green, try to use them in order to fight up, punch up essentially, and fight against 2-3 times as many people with these Macarials that are tanky enough to not die, have E-War to mitigate damage, and have enough alpha to still punch through targets.
Yeah.
Before then, armor Macarials were a big thing in nullsec for a little while because structures still had void bombs. And so the Macarial, as a ship that required no capacitor for its guns and could fit a passive armor tank, became one of the few decent ships to be able to put on a grid where every ship in your fleet was going to be out of capacitor the whole time. That
Such
kind
a good
of went
point.
away.
I forgot about
Away
that.
with get rid of void bombs.
Yeah.
Because you could finally actually fly other things on grid, so people chose things that were cheaper or just different.
Such a good point that I totally forgot. I knew there were other reasons, and that you just nailed it. The reason that you wanted that battleship is because Minmatar guns, which Angel ship use, right? Angel's a pirate faction based on Minmatar ships. And the Minmatar style guns don't use any capacitor. That's one of the reasons they're preferred. So if somebody uses capacitor warfare on you and they neutralize your energy, your capacitor, and your ship runs out of energy, most guns will shut off. You can still fire missiles, I think, and you can still use Minmatar guns, like artillery or
projectile. Like you got artillery, you got autocannons, but projectile and missiles, those are the weapon systems that work regardless of having cap or not.
Yeah, so the Macarial can continue to shoot even though the structure that it's attacking is wiping out their energy, their capacitor, through void bombs. And that was a very early on when Citadels arrived, that was a pretty standard tactic, was to, whatever fleet was attacking your structure, just drain their capacitor with void bombs. Void bombs are bombs that specifically target capacitor. So that's how early Citadel combat worked, and the Macarial was great for that. Every big alliance had a Macarial fleet for that reason, to go take out a structure, because they wouldn't be able to shut off your guns. You could continue to apply damage. The structure would go down eventually. Good point.
And then
you come down to Providence and you'll almost quite often see fleets of hundreds of Macarials.
The only other time that the Macarial was dominant, which was before my time technically, was when combat refitting was still a thing. Swiss Army Macarials were aggressively dominant because when switching between autocannons and artillery and being able to have a ton of utility mids that you could constantly swap out depending on what exactly the enemy was doing, if you had a fleet of people who were competent enough to do that combat refitting effectively, the Macarial basically served as a Swiss Army knife. It was literally whatever showed up, you had the tools in that ship to deal with them. And so it got to a point where it was kind of suppressing the meta because you couldn't bring a counter to say, they've got RDMax and they're running tracking computers and tracking disruptors. We'll bring AB Tengus and get under their guns. Because as soon as you show up in AB Tengus, they refit to autocannons and webs and MWDs and just run down your fleet.
Right.
So
you're right about that.
Impressive to the meta, but that got went away with combat refitting.
Yeah, if that was, I remember those fleets too, and you had to have both guns on your ship. So what he just basically explained to people who don't know the terms very well, is that the ship had it all. What he means by a Swiss Army is it could do multiple things. It could adapt to multiple situations while on the field. A lot of times, fleets have to know what they're up against to get into the right ships to be able to what we call hard counter what they're up against. But if you come out in the wrong ships, chances are you could be at such a disadvantage there's no way for you to win the fight. So the more versatility you can get undocked while you're out in the field, the more useful that type of ship would be. So the Macarial had long-range guns and short-range guns and had the speed to use the short-range guns by getting up on top of you and blasting you at close range. It also had long-range guns if it needed to stay far away from a fleet that could do a ton of damage. And if you could, I don't remember how you do the switching of the guns while you're in space. Maybe you use a carrier to switch guns off of.
You would have a Nestor in fleet, and you refit off the Nestor.
Right, but I don't know if the Nestor could keep up with the fleet as it's moving around. I don't remember. I think Nestor's for sure, but
it would generally be pretty stationary. You might have afterburners, but you're not really going very fast, so the Nestor's fine keeping up.
Is it? Okay. I don't actually remember doing it.
If the enemy ran away, you refit to Arty. And if they came close, you refit to AC. So you just you were there, and there was just a big ball around you where nothing they could do in that area mattered.
Yeah. So what we're talking about here is that you have to change your guns. In order to change your guns, you have to dock up normally. But if you're in hostile space, you may not be able to dock up. So what you have are, it's ship maintenance bay, isn't it? Or is it a fleet hangar?
It's technically fleet hangar, I think.
Fleet hangar, okay. Sorry. It's been a while since I PvP'd. So certain ships have a fleet hangar or a maintenance bay that you can use to essentially dock up, and that means switch equipment out. And I think there's a battleship that's Sisters of Eve battleship. What was it called? Nestor, yeah. And that's used a lot of times for that sort of a thing. So, and this has a huge historical, we can go into a deep hole about, logistical carriers and how they used to work in pairs where they would refit off each other and that sort of stuff. And there was a whole gameplay there that got taken out of the game when they created faxes or force auxiliaries. But essentially this refitting in space allowed versatility, and the Macarial as a battleship became a platform that you could go out and stay out and still be effective. And that's why it was preferred for a long time. Why did we get on the Macarial? I forgot. It's been fun chasing, but...
unique ships, adding them to the meta.
Yeah. So the idea is, so we'll bring it back to the beginning on the new electronic ships. It's hard for CCP to design new ships into an ecosystem like this because but they've been doing a pretty good job of making everything distinctly a choice. And that's what they want you to do. They want you to make choices because they need play and they need counterplay. Because that's what makes it interesting. Everything has to be beatable in some way so that not everybody uses the same thing. And so there's a whole ecosystem of things like if I bring a battleship that can do a ton of damage and has a ton of armor, you'll never penetrate my armor before I destroy you. So how do you defeat that? Well, maybe it's vulnerable to capacitor warfare. You drain the energy, I can't shoot my guns, and my defenses drop, and you destroy me. So you need that
ECM
kind of
used to
system.
be a good one as well. ECM used to be a good one. Sensor dampening, tracking disruption. There's plenty of counters, but they mostly resolve about not being able to apply the damage to the intended target.
Right. So, yeah, anyway, so the point is, how do you put in a new ship with new concepts and new weaponry? How do you fit it into this system where it's not overpowered or underpowered? It looks like this time they actually guessed wrong. They went underpowered, so we'll see what happens. And it could be because the skills will give you more damage on these new ships, like the Skybreaker, and that maybe those skills aren't trained up enough yet to get the full potential damage out, since it takes weeks, probably.
Most of the people I know who've been running the numbers have been PIFO, which will let you test it with max skills, and we're basing our guessing off of those numbers.
Okay. So
I still think that we might not have been able to find the situation where you can best apply it to where you have the biggest impact. Like that's going to be a bit of a hit and miss, trial and error to see like, hey, what can we really use them for? I do tend to see a trend where the new ships, especially with the introduction of now the Triglavians and the Edencom, that if you have a specialized group that realizes what you can and cannot do and work on the strength and try to compensate for potential weak spots, those groups will get the best results, and those will be the ones that are going to set the mark like, hey, this is something you can do if you use it right. And that's going to trigger a lot of theory crafting or people analyzing it and saying, hey, well, if you can use it like that, this could be a counter, or we could take it in a completely different direction and it's still going to be awesome to use.
yeah.
Because that's also a thing with new ships and new weapon systems, because they're new and we've been using certain ships or certain tactics for such a long time, you tend to get a bit tunnel focus, tunnel vision, where you just have to take a step back and let go of the tunnel vision to actually look outside of the box. Like, hey, this is what we consider to be normal, and this is something that's new, so let's not look at how to use it with everything that we've been used to so far.
Well, we shall see how this forms up. Do you guys have anything else that you wanted to bring up before we take off?
Not
I'm
at
just
this
glad
time.
to have new stuff to build.
Ask that again, please.
I'm just glad to have new stuff to build and manufacture.
You're an industrialist, Marv?
Very much so. I build lots of things.
Yeah. Have you been able to source the ingredients to this yet? Do you know where you need to go to get them?
If you're looking to make 2 guns ammo, I know a place.
I know a guy.
I know that. Sorry, I'm using on my phone and it's dodgy.
Yeah.
I don't know where to get the materials from yet, but I know that I need to get skill books, which I'm guessing drop from somewhere. Haven't been able to have that much time in game since this came out.
Yeah. It's tricky too.
There's a few science books, isn't there?
Yeah. It's hard to figure out because I think the blueprints are dropping from events and from the event, and
Skill books as well.
Skill books as well. Okay, I thought those were released on the market. Am I wrong?
Maybe the normal ones, but I think
Oh, the
that
specialized.
the specializations currently only drop in the new event sites, which are tricky. I tried my hands at it. It's like, okay, this is a quiet system, not much activity in the last half hour. The moment I hit the site, I see local go up, and because all the NPCs scrammed, like, please no, please no, please no. But yep, they went straight for the site, so that was -1 ship because it was a bit of a dog pile.
Yeah. So Blacksu says skill books, BPC, material drop from new site event. What CCP design for content for the low-sec hunters. So they'll have the advantage in picking up the ingredients and the skill books and materials for these ships. And Grim asks, when do the Edencom ships get buffed? Well, they, according to CCP Rise, are going to get looked at and changed today or tomorrow. So probably tomorrow, since they weren't changed today. Look for a damage increase, probably. I don't know if it'll be across all the 3 ships, the frigate, the cruiser, and the battleship, or just the frigate, the Skybreaker. I'm not sure which will get fixed, if not all.
Do we know if there's going to be like a flood of blueprints like there was for when the trig ships came out? Because I remember going to Jitto at one point and there being like a pack of like 50 Kikimora blueprints for like 50 million.
Yeah, but Kikimora's Tech 2, so that's more of invention.
I think it took a while for Triglavians to really ramp up, didn't it?
Yeah, you could only get the BPCs for the Tech 1 ships. You can't get BPCs for the Tech 2. You need to invent those. And the Tech 1s are just part of the loot table. You can get them anywhere from tier 1 up to tier 5 Abyssal. The higher tier you go, the more likely you are to get a BPC. But you don't have to take the biggest risk and still have the opportunity to find yourself Triglavian ship BPCs.
Yeah. By the way, Dutch, being corrected here, the Kiki is T1.
Oh, it's okay. Okay.
Yeah. The trig market stabilized in a week, according to Red Thoughts. For the most part, he says. I don't remember how fast it was. That seems a little fast to me. I thought it might have been more like 3 weeks to a month before you started seeing prices kind of stabilize. The specialization books were always really expensive. They did come down quite a bit at some point, but they were worth like 30 million. That's kind of a lot for a skill book. And then they came down to about 10, I think, at least for like the specialization for the medium guns and that kind of stuff. So
as long as it doesn't go silly like it did when the Trigs stuff first came out. I was doing a lot of skill book trading before they removed the whole before they added it into buying it from the skill tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I used to trade in skill books, and so when the Trig stuff came out, I got a whole bunch of that stuff. Some of them for like a couple of weeks were like, you'd get like the frigate one or something for like 500 to 700 million. I'm not sure if it was frigate or cruiser or something, but they went stupid at one stage.
Yeah, they were crazy. It was half a billion.
That's
for
the demand. That's people wanted to be the first, and people realizing, hey, I got it. So if I want to make bank, now's the best time because there isn't that much supply yet.
Right. But I think Red Thoughts here, and he has more experience on it than I do since he was trading it. It said it took a week to get the market for Trig stabilized. He was there buying and selling. I wasn't, so I don't know. I'm thinking of the specialized skill books were the ones that were really, really expensive for a long time. But the actual ingredients to build the ships, that might have happened in a week. I don't remember that very well. And it wasn't that long ago. It's just too much stuff coming out. Yeah. So yeah, let's take the specialized skill books aside and just the ingredients to build the ship, all the stuff, like how easy was that? And let's assume it was a week, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks for it to get stabilized. Let's assume the same thing then for this new ship that came out, the Edencom ships, and maybe in a week or so they'll be a lot more available. They're already getting out there, but I don't know how rare they are yet.
I remember when the Zarmazd was first a thing, before the trig components came out.
Mm-hmm.
I managed to build a whack ton of Zarmazd because it was T2 invention, and by that stage it was just minerals, and then they changed to the like 0-point condensates and the crystalline whatever it was, and getting that stuff in any sort of meaningful quantity, that was difficult.
Yeah. Well, we shall see. Thanks for your help, Red Thoughts, there, talking about Triglavian stuff and how fast the market adjusted to the new ships and how fast they were being built. By the way, where's the Zenitra these days? Because that was still pretty expensive a few weeks ago. Is that price coming down? Maybe we could look at it online. Let's see.
I'm pretty sure it got down to the build cost pretty quickly, which I think is about 15 bill, which means nobody's going to use them because they're terrible.
One of the CEOs down in Providence, they've got one, and they bought it out for a Poco Bash one time, and that was the last time we ever saw of it. It just went back in the hangar.
Jay just spun it around in space.
Basically, yeah, we went to go shoot like a red Poco, and he's like, oh, so I've got this thing, I shot it, and then he just, put it away. I don't think it was impressive. It looked good in space, though.
Like a groundhog.
People don't use the pirate faction dreads and faxes, even though those are objectively better than the normal variants. And the Zernitria is worse than normal variants. So there's just...
Wow,
it's going to be build cost.
Didn't realize that. Yeah. I'm opening up the game to take a look at the market, see if there's anything interesting going on there. So Black Sue says the big difference between trig ships are good on solo versus Edencom, which are very bad solo. And he's right about that. This is Edencom is definitely not one-on-one type of fight. Its power is in multiple targets. So, and this is the interesting thing. Imagine that the lightning strike that the Vorton shoots will do a certain amount of damage to one target, even if you're just fighting one target. But it will get stronger if there's two targets, like the electricity gets amped on itself. So where, let's just say you do 100 points of damage to one target, if there are two targets, you'll not only hit two targets, but you'll do 200 points of damage to each of them. I think that's the way it works. So you're really at a disadvantage if you're just fighting one or two people. You want to fight 5 people at the same time. You want 5 targets to take the damage, because then it will be 5 times the normal damage for each of them.
It could get a lot meaner if they just made it so it could bounce back to the origin, if that makes sense. So if it could hit you, then hit your drone, and then hit you again, and your drone again, and then you again. That might beef it up in the sort of small kind of things.
Wouldn't it be cool if it just keeps cycling back and forth if the ships are too close together, like the lightning never stops, and it's just constantly doing damage? That's not hard to imagine.
But that would mean it's very powerful against 2 targets and weaker against 3 targets.
Yes, it would.
And you probably don't want that.
Well, again, it's the balancing of this thing has got to be a huge effort. So, good luck, Rise. Yeah, I was just looking at. Well, let me turn on the game. Shall we?
You mean actually play the game?
Yes. Why not? Why not? Except streaming and playing is 2 different things. But let's put this in the center here. Fit the screen. There we go. I will unfortunately have to turn off your voices to designate who you are. But I was looking at Plex, and I thought it was jumping back up. which scared me. I was like, really? Is this rock bottom? Because it was going up fast, but it seems to have leveled out again. So it's going to stay in the 2.6 range. Let's see what the market orders are. Again, Plex isn't the gold standard that it used to be. I think it stopped doing that. The way the mechanics work now for trading, it just changed to make it less of a place where you want to store wealth. There was something that was interesting. I asked about this. Yeah, let's check the Volton. What is it? Vorton. I think it's Vorton, not Volton.
It's either VOR or VOL, one or the other.
Yeah, well,
Is it L? Volton?
there's R. Vorton.
Oh, I knew it. So, ship equipment, Vorton, projector. Yeah, I think that's probably... Let me see. Is that too small for you guys to read? Cool thing is this UI can change. It's too small for me to read, so... I'll change this to 175. Voila.
I can't see squat apart from
I
the
know.
Discord.
Hold eyes. I need to... Yeah, these things are... The lowest is 69 million for the projector. Sorry, 69 million. That's... Remember, this is like frigate size. That's the small one. Frigates are usually... The ship itself is usually 25 million. So a weapon for a ship... It's only a weapon you need on this kind of ship. But at 70 million, that's ridiculous.
Question is, are they selling at that price? Because if not, I imagine the price is going to be a lot lower. All those people that have thought they're being really clever putting them up for 300 million are going to be really upset when they get their tax bill.
Well, they're going to be stuck up there, right? Because they're going to... Yeah. So... You know, these are rare. This is why they're overpriced, but they're way overpriced. And 30 have been selling per day on average. That trend line shows that they are coming down in price and will continue to. But the first ones that sold, let's look at the table, because it looks like, yeah, the first one that sold was, I mean, they have a high of 300 million or 260 million. So there was definitely a gold rush on these, the first few. Maybe the first one or two, who knows? No, the very first day, the average of, and 30 were sold, so the average was 150 million for this small Vorton projector. And even the second day was 90 million, which is not much less. Now they're down to 70, and they'll continue to go down. These things will end up much cheaper than this. See what the large one is. That was a T1 variant too, by the way. Yeah, the large are 260 million. They actually went up in price today. They're up to 373 million for the weapon for a battleship sized. That is a lot. This is why you need to do these events and you need to build these things, because you can make a lot of money right now. This is easily 20 times what it will be worth when it stabilizes. And I don't even think there's, well, there is a T2 variant for 500 million. Well, somebody spent a lot of time making that. And for the frigate size, there's a few of those. Those are 400 million, so that's crazy, right? That's a gold rush. Telling you, if you're doing these sites and you're collecting the ingredients that go into this, you're going to make some money. There's the Vorton. Let's actually look at the information, and then under details, really, you can do, there's a tab here called industry. So click industry, and this shows you all the ingredients that go into making this thing. And what we'll do is we're going to do a quick exploration of how much this stuff is worth. Now I could click on each one of these and say, show me what this is worth, what's that is worth. But instead I'll do is take this blueprint here, and if I right click on it, I can move it into industry. So it says view in industry. So I'll hit that, and this loads it up for me. So now it's in my industry as if I were going to build it. And from here, I can hover and see where the ingredients are. And what I want to do is do a buy all here, buy all. So I'm going to buy all the ingredients to build this thing. And that will, it's a macro, will basically find the ingredients that I need. I think that's all. Oh, this is the T2 version. So let me get to the T1 version. I'm going to do this all over again. The T2 is a little more specialized, so it's not the right thing to look at. Let's go all the way down to the beginning. So bear with me while I do this. So it's Vorton or T. We'll go to the T1 variant, the small projector. We're going to, let me open this window. We're going to do the little I here for information. We see the blueprint here under the industry tab. We're going to right click on that and we're going to view an industry. It'll find our ingredients and then we're going to right click on this button here and we're going to do a buy all. So this is a shortcut to basically look on the Jita market and say, I want to build this thing, give me all the ingredients, set it up for me to buy them all, and let's see what that's going for. And the reason I'm doing this is I want to see what the build cost is. And this is not the taxes and all that kind of stuff. This is just the ingredients. And some of these might be missing, so it won't be exactly right. But it's 32 million to build this thing, so far as I can tell. And now you can see where some of the cost is like this. Can I open this up a little? Like some of the cost is here in the electromagnetic metaprismatic sheet.
It looks like there's a very large fight going down in Pinacasto right now.
Oh, really? Let me fly over there. Who's fighting?
Looks like it's goons and snuffed out. Maybe horde coming in on the side of snuff.
Yeah, that's the usual fight that's been happening lately. Do you know how big that is? What system is that in?
Pinacasto.
Oh, before I run over there, I want to... what's on the field? Are there any caps or anything?
I don't know. I gotta figure out if I have a character near there.
Yeah, because we could just watch it off your screen. To finish the point here, now you can see where the money is in the ingredients, and this will allow you to... It's a big flex. Oh, that's Tiger saying... one time I was showing you how the new Plex, buying Plex on your phone worked, and I accidentally bought some Plex. So I'll try not to do that this time. But yeah, you can see here's some of the ingredients like this nano cable, this metaprismatic array, or sorry, the type's really small. Hyperbolic metatransistor array, electromagnetic prismatic array, or sheeting. This is all the new stuff, I think. And then the 0-point condensate. So all these things are, the price point on these things, let's see. You can click this, you see where it's the red arrow up or down? If you click that, it will load up the market for you. I don't know why it's not popping up and staying up. Oh, look at that. This is new. I've been missing it this whole time, but if you hover over it, it tells you additional information on where that stuff is. That's interesting. Oh, I know why it wasn't working. It was, yeah. So anyway, I'm not going through all that again, but yeah, it was on a tab. I didn't grab it off the tab. That's why it kept disappearing. And I closed the tab and everything closed. And so instead of running it all down, just trust me that if you were to hit that button, you would see it on the market and you could kind of see like its trend lines and is this overpriced or not? And that's how, if you're building something, you can look to see what part of this, what ingredient out of this batch is costing the most and why. And you can see if the price is being manipulated. Now, the reason I bring that up is because when something new comes out, the ingredients that are needed for it need to be looted by people. And you might see some gouging there because demand is going to be very, very tight. So that's why I was trying to track that down. Anyway, that's it for me. We'll be back again tomorrow, talk about more things. I mean, we'll cover this fight that's happening right now. We'll see how big it gets. Marie, do you have a last report on that thing?
Live kill mails are quiet, so
Well, we'll see
if
tomorrow then.
goons just bailed.
This is one
They
last
might
thing.
have.
One last thing I wanted to look at. Oh, okay, the spike's over. I was noticing that Balgarns have been climbing again. You can see since, what date is that? October. They bottomed out at like, what? Basically 230 million, and now they're up at, this is the Balgarn, up at over more than 100 million on that. So it's like 350 million. So the Balgarns found some usage. They were overfarmed by the Imperium that just produced gazillions of BPCs and sold them on the market super quick, super cheap. In fact, let's look at how cheap that was. We'll find that in contracts. And yeah, so the blueprint gets down to like 85 million, right? And then if you right click on this thing, let's see, if you take that blueprint, I think you can drag and drop it. We'll bring up the industry tab. You can see how much it costs to build this thing. So you see blueprint cost, add it to your production cost, throw some taxes on that, and you get kind of like your sell point. And then you look on the market and you think, is it cheaper to buy it or is it cheaper to build it? And then, of course, if you're trying to make a profit, you have to see if there's enough profit in there to merit the time. There may not be. So you can take this thing out of...
Looks like the fight got ended by Horde and Snuffed dropping like 50 carriers.
Oh, it's another carrier brawl. That's pretty big. That could get big. So if there's no answer to that carrier drop, then the fight's over.
If goons were going to drop dreads, they already would have. I think they still haven't sorted out how to deal with Snuffed Out's dreads.
Wow, good. Some things to report on tomorrow. So what you're looking at here is the Balghorn. I just grab it out of the available contracts. I just grab this thing, drag it, drop it, and it puts it in my industry window so I can simulate what the building costs would be. And in doing so, I can see that the total estimated price of building a Balghorn these days is 223 million. So if I buy an 85 million blueprint and it costs me 220 to build, that's 300 million. So 300 million plus taxes, let's say it's JITA. If you build it here, it'll be like 11, 12%. So let's say it's, we'll just put a 20% and bake in the profit margin too. So that's 30 million, just to keep the numbers easy. 330 million out the door, I'll have a Balghorn. So let's see what its price is. Yeah, so you could buy it for 315 million. So the point is, at this, you still would say, I think I'm just going to buy the Balghorn instead of buying the blueprint, finding the minerals needed, and then building it. That's some of the, and I think about it, there's a lot of shortcuts and right clicks and hidden stuff. So a normal player wouldn't be able to find his way to figure that out that quickly. Maybe we should just do a lot of industry shows and teach people how to do that kind of work. Most real industrialists in EVE will actually take that information and put it in a spreadsheet and then manipulate it outside the game. But the Cryos expansion brought in that unified, estimate your build cost and all that kind of stuff. So it allowed people to be able to, in real time, in the game, make calculations on should I build or should I buy. So, okay.
Oh, there's plenty of out-of-game tools like the Lazy Blacksmith websites and whatnot.
Plenty. Tons. Yeah. Steve Rnukin is known for a lot of industry stuff. So go to, what's Steve's website? Fuzzyworks.
Fuzzworks, yeah.
Fuzzworks.
Fuzzworks.
Yeah, Fuzzworks. F-U-Z-Z works. And he has industry stuff there. You can do estimates. And the problem I always had with calculators outside the game is I could never fully trust them. Like, are they accurate to the minute? So when you're in the game, everything's accurate to the second. So that's why I did that. Okay, that was a lot of information today. That was good stuff, Murray, coming from you. Good job. And from all you guys, thanks for coming by. Was it IPEX? Yeah, IPEX joined us today, coming out of the audience there. And thank you guys for posting stuff in the audience. It was nice talking with you guys. I had a very pleasant day. Now, let's read
I hear
something.
that there was Provi talks that I missed earlier.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out what's been going on there.
Would you like some insight?
Sure. Well, first tell us who you are so that we can trust the source.
I am Marsh James, diplomat for ProviBlock and in the Alliance of Apocalypse.
Okay, that gives you some cred.
Diplomat.
Tell us
What
what's
would
going
you
on
like
there.
to know?
First,
as you
yeah,
go.
go ahead. No. Why don't you just tell us what's going on in Providence?
Well, since the steamroll of Pandemic Legion about 2 years ago, we've had some lingerers in the form of like Wrecking Crew and all that. There's been entities coming and going, but they seem to be there. There's battles here, battles there. We've had some people come, had some people go, had quite a bit of movement lately.
What do you mean by movement? People coming and going from the corporation?
From the coalition. So we've
coalition. Sorry.
We've had some alliances leave. We've had at least 2 in the recent weeks leave. We've had a bunch more come in, and with the activity that's been in Providence the past, it's been heating up like quite a bit lately. So there's been a lot more traffic of people coming in on pretty much both blue and red sites.
So it's been heating up, right? I've noticed that there's been a lot more activity over the last few months than lately. It's been showing up on my radar a lot more.
Just a few days ago, there was a large battle. Well, in the eyes of ProviBlock, a large battle in KBP. Like, it's nothing like the 4,000 to 8,000 that you see in other parts of the game, but for ProviBlock, having 2,000 to 3,000 in a battle is significant.
Yeah. What are some of the internal struggles you guys have had if you had people leaving? Is it normal stuff, or has there been something that you could point at?
Trying to find US and AU time zone people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's not why people left.
Let's not get into that, because you've got a bit more of an insight to that.
All the USTZ people are in the north, and you can't have them. They're mine.
For context, my alliance is one of the ones that left.
Your alliance, but you're a weird, distorted corporation of an alliance.
My corpulence left. A LORP corpulence. I don't know.
I like a LORP. So why did you leave? Is that something you discussed publicly, or is it not for public consumption?
Some of the reasons that I left, I've been told, have been improving. but I'm not too keen on going into full details because it's one, I like Marth, and I'd rather not stamp on his parade sort of thing, because it wasn't exactly amicable. We're not exactly happy with. Well, obviously we left, so of course we're not happy with Providence. But part of it was culture, and part of it was organizational issues and a sort of very significant resistance to change would probably be the nice way to put it.
That's traditionally been the case for Providence, though. Like everybody that's come out of Providence or left it says they don't want to change. And I've never know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
It's definitely been ever since the pandemic steamrolled 2 years ago. Like there has been quite significant changes, but there are still some dinosaurs that are like, we've got this system and it works now, even though it's being held together by like duct tape and rusty bolts. It works, so unless it goes away, then. But you do the best with what you got. Like we've got a coalition of a whole bunch of alliances, and we currently do have a system that we can coalesce in one place. It might not be the best for like organizations and IT and stuff like that, but it's what we've got.
So Daddy here says, well, there was an Amar RP alliance that was asked to leave Delve lately. Has probably reached out to them to move into that region.
That's something that I'm not aware of. That's probably above my pay grade.
Right. I don't even know if you guys work that way. I've never seen Providence actively recruiting. It's more like people get interested in Provi and Provi says, yeah, sure, join us or not.
Well, that's one of the things they seem to
something that we should be changing.
I see.
Sorry, I didn't talk over you. There's a bit of a latency because you're upside down at the moment. But yeah, I've noticed, I mentioned this earlier, that Providence seems to has started to recruit a bit more. If you look on like the Eve Jobs subreddit, it's a bit more populated with Provi posts. They seem to have started to what's the word? Just whip round and get that working, which is good for them. You know, that was one of the things that I observed in the early days when I first joined ProviBlock was that their recruitment efforts seemed very thin on the ground.
Well, the group that he's talking about is the Sixth Empire. I had no idea they were asked to leave Delve. That's big news. Wow. That, for those that don't know, that's Max Singularity, the Space Pope. That is his group. It also has Ivy in it, who was the founder of Eve North, and she's part of Talking in Stations. But she also has a character, or I think she's in the Sixth Empire. So, is she in the Sixth Empire? Or maybe she's just friends with them. I'm not sure if she's in it.
Or maybe they should come down and live in Providence. We've got plenty of space.
But they've got an anti-pope. They're heathens.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think there's a religious problem. Yeah. It's interesting. If anybody knows why the Sixth Empire was asked to leave Delve, I'd be interested. We can ask Max to see if he'll come on. I think that's worthy of uncovering, seeing what's going on there. Well, Daddy says they were asked to leave because they had too many spies, but, well, very well behaved because they haven't leaked for over a month. So, Sixth Empire kicked for having too many spies. We have to look into that. That would be interesting. All right.
I noticed on dotlan that Alliance movements, one of my people are on the very top.
Yeah, we brought that up earlier, loading. As far as I'm aware, they're relatively new to Providence, but also What happened? They've taken a massive hit to members.
It's one particular corporation that was interested in the Provi life, and so they've broken off and they're going to stand on their own feet now. So that's why they left looting and they're going to be their own entity, and that would be in the Starforge Syndicate Corporation.
Are they going to stay
So
in
the
Provi?
Starforge are the ones that are coming to Provi, or is it the loading that's coming to Provi?
I don't believe that loading's interested in Provi. It was just the one corporation within loading.
Oh, well, they had the better name anyway, right? It's a little more RP. Oh, that's interesting. So that was 850 members for that corporation coming into Provi. Are they going to go into an alliance, or are they going to stay a corporation only?
They have actually since done that in the past 7 hours.
Who'd they join?
Dark Order of Ascension. They've founded their own alliance.
Oh.
With 850 members, I don't see why you wouldn't found your own alliance, to be honest.
No, the 850. Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see.
Vehicle.
What's that?
That's a very, very big corp by all standards, really.
Yeah, it is. Definitely alliance size. So we'll see how they do. All right. It's been 15 minutes to 2 hours, so hour 46. Much longer show than I intended. I thought I was going to do half hour, but we're going a little off script today, talking about ships and stuff, and now we're talking about Provi, which is great. Great. This is the kind of show that I really like. It's a surprise to me as well as the audience.
What do you mean off script? What script?
I don't know. There's no script. I was just saying, that's the problem with this show. There's no script. Just do it. Let's do it again tomorrow. I think we're going to move to this 1600 instead of 1500. It seems to be a little bit better for Pacific Coast people like myself. So it's not 8 a.m. that we do this. It would be more like 9 a.m. And it's also a little bit better for Europeans who can kind of tune in a little bit later than, they might still be in their workday at 3 p.m. if you're in the UK, for instance. It might be better if you tune in at like 4 or a little bit later, because as you get later into the day, it's a little more relaxed.
What are you talking about? It's like 4 a.m. on a Thursday.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing awake, man. This is Australia time is brutal. Who should we? I'll take it. Let me see who's.
I'm always awake at weird times.
Yeah. Let's see who is streaming for EVE Online.
Oz usually starts up about now.
Where's Oz?
He's not.
Probably
He's not on yet.
15 minutes, right? Well, why don't you plug his show? When does it come on? It'll be a good one to watch, actually.
Do you know what? Let me just check I'm sure he's got a schedule somewhere.
Well, Marquee Dragons.
In an hour and a half, so a bit too early for him.
Yeah, we can't stay on that long. Well, let's see. We don't want to flood somebody who has 3 people on, because it'll scare them.
That's all the fun part, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know who to go to. I guess we'll try this Tirasudan. I just don't know what language. It's English, okay. So we'll try that. We'll just surprise them. Let's do it. All right, guys. Thanks for sticking around as long as you did. We will see you again tomorrow. This is Trimaris Udon, I think. He has 15 people. Say hello to him on behalf of Talking in Stations. And we will see you tomorrow. And be nice. Don't wreck the place. Don't jump on the couch. All right, take care.